Welcome back to The Deep Dive. I'm your host, and today we are tackling a subject that I think haunts pretty much everyone, usually around January 1st.
Oh, absolutely. But honestly, it lingers all year round for most of us.
Yeah.
I'm really excited to get into this one.
Same here. It's that overwhelming desire you get to change your life, which is immediately followed by the crushing realization that changing your life is actually really, really hard.
It is the universal struggle. I mean, we all have that list of things we want to be different, right? Our
Yeah.
health, our productivity, maybe learning a new skill.
Right.
But the gap between the current you and the future you often feels like the Grand Canyon. You can't just jump into one go.
Exactly. We always think we need this massive, earth-shattering moment to fix everything. We just kind of sit around and wait for the lightning bolt of motivation to strike.
Which rarely happens.
Right.
Yeah.
And the stack of research and notes we have today argues the exact opposite of that go big mentality. Today we are diving into the book Atomic Habits by James Clear. And I have to be honest, when I first saw the title and the subject matter, I thought, okay, here we go. Another self-help book about habits. Brush your teeth, make your bed, got it.
Yeah, it is really easy to dismiss the topic as mundane or something you've heard a million times before. But Clear's work here is, well, it's arguably one of the most significant operating manuals for human behavior written in the last decade.
It really is. It doesn't just inspire you, it actually trains you.
Exactly. And the title itself, Atomic Habits, actually gives away the entire secret right up front if you pay attention to it.
Yeah, let's unpack that title a bit, because when people hear the word atomic, they usually think of something explosive, like a bomb. Massive energy.
Right, and it has a dual meaning here.
Yes.
Yes, atomic implies immense power. But think back to high school physics class. An atom is the smallest constituent unit of a larger system.
The building block.
Precisely. The core premise here is that we shouldn't be looking for these massive, sweeping overhauls in our lives. We should actually be looking for tiny changes, the atoms. Because those tiny changes are what lead to remarkable results.
Which is just such a relief to hear, because usually the advice out there is go big or go home.
And that advice is often exactly why people fail.
Yeah.
The source material emphasizes a crucial distinction early on. Clear points out that this is not a book about finding motivation. It's a manual on how to build systems.
Because motivation is fickle.
Extremely fickle. It comes and goes like the weather. A system, on the other hand, is something you can rely on even when you feel terrible. As the source puts it, and this is one of my favorite quotes, you do not rise to the level of your goals, you fall to the level of your systems.
Man, that quote hits hard. You fall to the level of your systems. It basically just flat out says that willpower is not a strategy.
Not a sustainable one, anyway.
Right. But before we get into the nuts and bolts of how to actually build that system, let's talk about the guy who wrote the manual. Because James Clear didn't just stumble upon these ideas in some university lab.
No, he didn't.
He lived them, and under pretty intense, actually terrifying circumstances.
You really did. And his backstory provides a ton of credibility to his arguments. Clear was a really promising athlete in high school, a great baseball player, until he suffered a truly horrific accident.
Yeah, this part of the source material was wild to read.
A loose baseball bat slipped out of a player's hands and struck Clear directly in the face.
And we aren't talking about a bloody nose and a trip to the nurse's office here.
No, it was completely catastrophic. He suffered severe facial fractures, he had multiple seizures, and he eventually had to be placed in a medically induced coma.
Just awful.
He had to rebuild his entire life from scratch. We are talking about regaining basic motor functions, going through brutal physical therapy, just trying to get back to a baseline of normalcy.
He couldn't just will himself back to being a top-tier athlete overnight.
It was physically impossible for him to do that.
So he was forced to go small. He had no other choice.
Exactly. He had to rely on small daily habits just to function. Things like getting to bed at a reasonable hour, keeping his room clean, tiny, almost insignificant things.
But they weren't insignificant.
Not at all, because those tiny things compounded. Over time, he didn't just recover. He went on to become an academic All-American athlete in college.
Which is incredible.
It is, and through that journey, he realized that the exact same principles he used to recover from a traumatic brain injury could be applied to anything. Business, fitness, writing, you name it.
And that realization led him to formulate what he calls the 1% rule. Now, I love this part because I am a total nerd for numbers.
I know you are.
Walk us through the math of improvement here, because when you actually lay it out, it is startling.
It really is. The mathematical argument is so straightforward, but incredibly powerful. If you can manage to get just 1% better at something every single day, by the end of 1 year, you won't just be 2 or 3 times better. You will be roughly 37 times better than when you started.
37 times better, just by doing 1% a day.
Yes. That is the sheer power of compounding interest applied to human behavior. But the source also warned us about the flip side of that math.
Right, the dark side of compounding.
Exactly. If you get 1% worse every day, just a tiny slip, a little bit of laziness here, a skipped workout there, eating a bit worse, you degrade down to nearly 0 over that same year.
And that is the really scary part. You don't feel 1% worse on Tuesday than you did on Monday.
No.
It's practically invisible in the moment.
Which brings us to a brilliant visualization from the book, the airplane analogy.
Oh, I love this one. It really helps visualize why we don't see results immediately. So imagine you're a pilot. You're leaving Los Angeles and you're heading for New York.
Okay.
If you change the heading of that plane by just 1 degree before takeoff, I mean, the nose of the plane moves just a few feet. It's nothing.
Barely noticeable.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Where do you end up?
You don't land in New York. You land in Washington, D.C., hundreds of miles away from your target.
Just from a tiny 1 degree shift at the very start of the journey.
That is exactly the point.
Right.
For you listening right now, your current daily habits are that 1 degree shift. You probably won't see the difference today or tomorrow or honestly even next month.
Right.
But over the span of a year or 5 years, the destination changes completely.
Yeah.
We are so culturally conditioned to focus on the destination, the big goal, that we completely ignore the trajectory we are currently on.
And speaking of goals, that transitions us perfectly to what the source identifies as Chapter 2, identity-based habits.
Yes.
And honestly, I feel like this might be the most challenging part of the entire book for some people to swallow.
Why is that?
Because it sounds a little bit fake at first.
You mean the whole fake it till you make it vibe?
Exactly.
Hmm.
The source argues that instead of focusing on outcomes like saying, I want to lose 20 pounds, we should be focusing on identity, saying, I am a healthy person.
All right.
But if I'm currently sitting on the couch, eating a bag of chips, and telling myself I am a healthy person, it just feels like a lie. My brain knows I'm lying.
That is a completely fair critique.
Right.
But Clear isn't suggesting you just chant affirmations into a mirror and change nothing else. He's talking about the feedback loop between your beliefs and your actions.
Okay, walk me through that.
Usually, we try to change our behavior by obsessing over the result. We say, I want to run a marathon. But that requires massive willpower because, deep down, you see yourself as a non-runner who is currently trying to run.
So you're basically dragging your old self to the finish line, kicking and screaming.
Precisely. You are fighting your own established identity. But if you shift the focus to the identity first, you start with, I am a runner. Then the behavior follows much more naturally. You start asking yourself in daily situations, what would a runner do right now?
Oh, I see.
And here's the key to your point about it feeling fake. Every single action you take is a vote for the type of person you wish to become.
A vote. I really like that framing.
Yes. So if you choose the apple instead of the chips, you just cast a vote for the identity of, I am a healthy person.
You aren't lying to yourself anymore.
Exactly. You are building evidence. You are proving it to yourself, one small action at a time. The goal isn't to read a book. The goal is to become a reader.
So real transformation is actually identity change.
Yes. If you change the identity, the habits stick around for good. If you only change the surface level habit, it usually falls apart the second your motivation runs dry.
Okay, so we know we need to shift our identity. We know we need to aim for those tiny 1% improvements. But how do we actually build these things? What is the machinery under the hood of a habit?
This is where we get into the biology and psychology of human behavior. Clear breaks down every single habit into a 4-step biological loop.
Right, the habit loop.
Cue, craving, response, and reward.
It's a continuous cycle.
It is a biological cycle hardwired into our brains. And to manipulate this cycle, whether you want to build a good habit or break a bad one, Clear offers 4 laws, 4 rules that correspond directly to each part of that loop.
Okay, let's run through the good habit playbook first. What are the 4 rules for building a system that actually works?
If you want a good habit to stick, you have to do 4 things. 1, make it obvious. 2, make it attractive. 3, make it easy. And 4, make it satisfying.
All right, let's unpack law number 1, make it obvious. This seems to link directly back to what the source calls Chapter 4, which is all about environment design.
This is such a critical point. We tend to think that people with amazing habits just have superhuman willpower and self-control.
Right, we think they're just wired differently.
But Clear argues that willpower is vastly overrated. The real hidden driver of your behavior is your environment.
So it's not that I'm inherently weak, it's that my room is literally designed to make me fail.
In a way, yes. Think about it. If your phone is sitting right next to you on the desk, buzzing and lighting up every 2 minutes, the cue is incredibly obvious.
Yeah, you're going to pick it up.
You will pick it up. You will scroll. You are fighting a losing battle against your own environment because the cue is right there in your face.
Guilty as charged.
We all do it.
Yeah.
But on the flip side, let's say you want to practice the guitar more often, but you keep the guitar in its heavy case, zipped up, shoved in the back of the guest room closet.
The cue is basically invisible.
Exactly. You're never going to practice.
Wow.
To make it obvious, you take the guitar out of the case, you buy a cheap stand, and you put it right in the middle of your living room.
Make it so you basically trip over the thing.
Right. Design your physical space so the good cues are screaming at you and the bad cues are completely hidden.
Which leads right into the second law. Make it attractive. This tackles the craving part of the loop. But how do we make doing something objectively difficult, like filing taxes or going for a run in the cold, attractive?
You have to engineer the desire. And one of the best strategies the source mentions for this is called temptation bundling.
Temptation bundling.
Yeah. You deliberately link an action you want to do with an action you need to do.
Give me a real-world example of that.
Let's say you love listening to true crime podcasts. That's your want. But you really need to get more cardio in. That's your need.
Okay.
You make a strict rule for yourself. I am only allowed to listen to this specific podcast while I am physically on the treadmill at the gym.
Oh, that's smart. So if I want to know who the killer is, I have to go get my heart rate up.
Exactly.
Yeah.
You are piggybacking the dopamine hit from the entertainment right onto the exercise. You are making the hard thing attractive by associating it with something you already crave.
I love that. Moving to law number 3, make it easy. This is the response phase. And this is where my absolute favorite concept in the whole book comes in, the 2-minute rule.
The 2-minute rule is the ultimate antidote to procrastination.
It really is.
We often procrastinate because the task we have in our head just feels too massive. We tell ourselves, I need to run 5 miles today, or I need to read an entire chapter of this dense textbook. It feels incredibly heavy.
So I just don't do it all.
Exactly. The 2-minute rule states that when you start a new habit, it should take less than 2 minutes to do. Period.
But wait, let me push back on that for a second. I can't get fit in 2 minutes. I can't learn to speak Spanish fluently in 2 minutes.
No, you can't. But you can establish the habit of showing up in 2 minutes.
Ah.
If your goal is to read more, the 2-minute version of that habit is simply read one single page. If your goal is to start running, the 2-minute version is put on my running shoes and step out the front door.
That seems almost too easy, though. Like, what is the actual point of reading just one page? It feels silly.
The point is to master the art of showing up. A habit must be established before it can be improved.
That makes sense.
You literally cannot optimize a habit that does not exist yet. Most people try to optimize their intense hour-long workout routine before they've even established the basic habit of driving to the gym.
So lower the bar, make it so incredibly easy that you can't possibly say no.
Precisely. Reduce all the friction. Once you're out the door with your running shoes on, you'll probably end up going for a walk or a run anyway.
Right. And finally, law number 4, make it satisfying. This is the reward part of the loop.
And this one is tricky, because bad habits usually have immediate rewards. Eating a donut tastes amazing right now.
Very true.
But good habits have delayed rewards. You put in the effort now, but you don't get fit until much later. So to make a good habit stick in the short term, you need to feel successful immediately.
This is where habit trackers come in.
Yes. Putting a big red X on a wall calendar or checking a little box in an app on your phone, it gives your brain a tiny immediate hit of dopamine.
It closes the loop.
It does. It signals to your brain, I did the thing and I succeeded. It turns the invisible progress of a good habit into something highly visible and satisfying.
Okay, so we have the master framework. Make it obvious, attractive, easy, and satisfying. And I assume we can just invert those if we want to kill a bad habit. Right?
Exactly. You flip the script, you make the bad habit invisible, unattractive, difficult, and unsatisfying.
So if I want to stop mindlessly scrolling before bed, I leave my phone charging in the kitchen. That makes it invisible. And I delete the social media apps so I'd have to re-download them. That makes it difficult.
Spot on.
Now, here's where the book gets really interesting and, frankly, a little frustrating for people like me who want instant gratification. The source talks about something called the plateau of latent potential.
What a name, right?
It sounds like a geographical feature you'd find on a map.
It is a very fancy name for a very common, very painful human experience. This concept explains exactly why we quit when things get tough. We start a new habit, say eating healthier and going to the gym. We put in the hard work for a week, maybe 2 whole weeks. We look in the mirror and we see absolutely nothing.
Zero results. Nothing has changed. And that's usually when we say, well, clearly this isn't working, and we just give up and order a pizza.
Clear calls that phase the valley of disappointment. We naturally expect our progress to be linear. We think, I put in 1 unit of hard work, I should immediately get 1 unit of visible results.
But biological systems don't work like that at all.
No, they don't. And the source uses this brilliant comparison to an ice cube melting to explain it.
This is the perfect analogy. So imagine an ice cube sitting on a table in a room that is, say, 25 degrees. It's freezing.
Okay.
You start slowly heating the room. 26 degrees, 27, 28. The ice cube is still just sitting there, completely solid.
You put in all this energy, you've raised the temperature, but visually, nothing has happened to the ice.
Right. 29, 30, 31 degrees. Still just a block of ice. Then the room hits 32 degrees, and suddenly the ice begins to melt.
Now, to someone who just walked into the room, it looks like an overnight sudden change. But was it really that 1 degree shift from 31 to 32 that did all the work?
No, it was all the invisible work that happened before that.
Exactly. That is your latent potential. When you're working hard at a new habit and seeing 0 results, you aren't wasting your time.
You're just storing it up.
You are storing potential energy. You are slowly heating the room. You just have to be willing to sit in that valley of disappointment long enough to finally hit your breakthrough temperature.
That is so hard to do, though, mentally. It requires so much blind faith in the process.
It does. Which brings us back to that idea of compounding we talked about earlier. The quote from the source is, "Habits are the compound interest of self-improvement." Just like with money in a retirement account, the growth curve is completely flat for a very long time before it suddenly shoots upward.
So the lesson there is basically, stay on the bus. Even if you can't see the final destination out the window yet, just keep driving.
Which naturally leads us to the best strategy for actually staying on that bus.
Oh.
Consistency.
Yes. The eternal battle between perfection and consistency. I honestly feel like perfectionism is just procrastination dressed up in a fancy suit. We tell ourselves, if I can't do this perfectly, I just won't do it at all.
That is a really astute observation. We think if we don't have time for the full, grueling 1-hour workout today, doing a 5-minute stretch is totally pointless.
Right.
Clear argues the exact opposite. The goal isn't to be perfect every single day. The goal is simply to be consistent.
And he has a very specific rule for this, which I think is my favorite practical takeaway from the whole deep dive today, the never miss twice rule.
It is such a compassionate but simultaneously strict rule.
Uh,
It fully acknowledges that we are human beings. You will miss a day. Life happens. You might get sick or stuck at work, or honestly, you might just be feeling lazy one evening. Missing 1 day of a habit is just a slip-up. It's an accident.
But missing 2 days.
Missing 2 consecutive days is the start of a completely new habit.
Man,
By missing twice, you are casting a vote for the identity of someone who quits.
that is a really heavy realization. 1 day is a mistake, but 2 days is a pattern.
Exactly. So the key to long-term success isn't to never ever fail. The key is to reduce your recovery time to 0. You get back on track immediately the very next day.
Even if the next workout is terrible.
Yes, even if you only read 1 single sentence of that book, just the act of showing up maintains the biological habit loop.
It preserves that identity you've been voting for. It proves I am a person who shows up even when I don't want to.
Yes. As Claire says in the book, lost days hurt you significantly. More than successful days help you. You have to protect the compounding asset you are building.
All right, so let's try to bring this all home for everyone listening. We've covered the compounding math, the massive identity shift, the 4 laws of behavior change, and surviving the plateau of disappointment.
We covered a lot of ground.
We did. But for the listener out there who is fired up right now and wants to start changing their life today, this afternoon, what is the immediate practical action plan?
I would boil it all down to these 4 steps. First, pick one thing. Just one. Please do not try to completely change your entire life this afternoon. You will fail.
Right. Start small.
Second, shrink that one thing down. Apply the 2-minute rule we talked about. Make the new action so incredibly easy that you literally cannot say no to it.
Read one page. Tie the shoes.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Third, design your environment. Put the positive cues right in front of your face so you trip over them and hide the temptations.
And the fourth step.
Fourth, focus entirely on who you are becoming, not just what outcome you are trying to achieve today. Vote for your new identity.
You know, hearing it all laid out like that, it sounds almost boring.
Honestly, it is boring. And that is perhaps the biggest, most closely guarded secret of all.
How so?
We are sold this idea that success is all about constant passion and high-octane intensity. But really, true success belongs to the people who can handle the sheer boredom of doing the exact same tiny reps day after day when nobody is watching them.
Wow. Boring is where the magic happens.
That's it. Professionals stick to the boring schedule. Amateurs let life get in the way.
Well, as we wrap up today's deep dive, we always like to leave you with a provocative thought, something to take with you into your day that goes just a little bit deeper than what we've discussed.
I want to go back to that core concept of compound interest one last time.
Yeah.
We tend to evaluate our entire lives based on the big flashy moment, the college graduations, the big promotions, the weddings.
A highlight reel.
Right. But Atomic Habits really teaches us that our life is actually just the sum of our boring, invisible daily habits. So I want you to ask yourself this question. Look closely at your last 24 hours. The scrolling on your phone, the food you ate, the work you did, the time you went to sleep, every single one of those tiny actions was a penny dropped into a piggy bank.
A vote.
A vote. If you projected your exact habits from the last 24 hours out into the future for 5 years, would you end up rich or would you be morally and physically bankrupt?
Wow. Am I currently in habit debt or am I building habit profit?
It's the only question that actually matters. You don't need to change everything about yourself today.
Yeah.
You just need to change your trajectory by 1 degree.
That is absolutely going to stick with me. Thank you so much for joining us on this deep dive into Atomic Habits. Stop looking for the miracle lightning bolt. Go find your 1% today, and we'll see you next time.